everyone, it's Alice, and today I have gathered up a stack of books that I am hoping to get to over the summer. It's still not very summery here, to be honest, but June is just around the corner, and because I have time off of school for the summer, I want to read lots and lots. Obviously, I still have to work, but it feels like I have so much free time now. I also am not really a summer girly, but I don't know. I guess the thing that I don't like is the heat, so when it gets too hot, I really don't enjoy it. But I do love reading lots during the summer. There's something about it that feels really special to me. So I've picked out a stack of books, and obviously, as always, these books are a mix of all kinds of different things, and I'm just gonna show them to you, and during the summer, we'll see where my mood takes me. I haven't really organized these very well, so we're just gonna go through the stack how it is. And on the top of the pile, we have Paladin's Strength by T. Kingfisher, which is the second book in the Saint of Steel series. There are 4 books in that series, and I read the first one a couple of months ago now, and I really enjoyed it. So I want to keep going. As far as I can tell, the books in this series are set in the same world, but they don't necessarily follow the same characters. So in this one, we're also following a paladin, but he is a different paladin than the one in the first book, but they're from the same order, so they are paladins of a dead god. It's like a whole thing, but it's a side character that we meet in the first book, so I know who it is. So we're following another paladin in this one, and it says that he is tracking a killer across the continent. I wonder if that has something to do with the particular thing that we see in the first book, which is like there's a supernatural thing with some severed heads and it's a whole thing, but we don't really get a lot of answers to that particular thing, so I'm wondering if this paladin is doing something with that. Kind of hope so, because I'm very curious as to what that is, but either way, he's chasing this supernatural killer. This is a romance though, so there is a female character in here as well. She is a nun from a secretive order who is chasing down these raiders who burned down her convent. And I'm guessing somehow they cross paths. It sounds really good, and because I liked the first book so much and because I love this author so much, I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this. And there's 4 books in this series in total, so I just kind of want to read all of them, but I'm going to start with this one. The second book I have is also from an author I already know I like. It's The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton. And this is the author who wrote the books in the Dangerous Damsels series. So the first book is The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. And I've read 3 books in that series and really enjoyed them. So I'm excited to read something else by her. And a lot of you have told me I'm really going to enjoy this one. It's historical fiction, fantasy, romance, and it follows these rival ornithologists who are chasing after this magical bird, I think, which is very difficult to find. It's very rare, and I think they end up teaming up despite them being rivals, and they try to find this bird, but then there's also some interesting tension between them, which I'm sure we'll get into. I know this author's writing style is not for everyone, but I've really enjoyed it in the books that I've read by her in the Dangerous Damsel series, and I'm sort of expecting this book to have a similar vibe in that it's kind of ridiculous and over the top, but I can get really into that when I'm in the right mood for it. So I'm excited to see what this is like. And also, we have the added element of this being, at least in part, about birds. And for some reason, the older I get, the more into birds I get. So I feel like I'm like 15 years away from becoming a bird watcher. I feel like that's in my future. I don't really know why, but birds are interesting. Obviously, the bird in here is like a magical bird, so I don't know how much we're gonna see of it, but yeah, I feel like this is like the perfect mix for me. Then we have an adventure book that I've really been looking forward to. It's Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. And I've never read anything from this author either, so I'm excited to try something by him. And this sounds really good. It's like fantasy adventure, and it follows this girl who has lived her whole life on this island. And she's very happy there, but it's all she knows. And she lives there with her dad, and she has this friend who she loves that keeps telling her stories. And then something happens where I think the father is looking for a new bride, and so he leaves the island to find that bride, but for some reason he takes that friend with him. And then it says that disaster strikes. I'm guessing they go missing or something because the main character goes in search after them, and she leaves the island that she's never left before. She stows away on a ship, I think, and she is looking for this sorceress who might be able to help her. think that's what's going on. And that sounds like a nice adventure. There is also mention of pirates in here, which is always intriguing. And that's all I really know. I've heard a lot of good things about this though, so I have kind of high expectations for it. Next, we have a witchy book. It's The Once and Future Witches by Alix E. Harrow. And I kind of want to read everything from this author now because I read Starling House last year or the year before, and I loved that book. And I very recently finished The Everlasting by this author as well, and I'm gonna review it in my May wrap up, but I kind of love that book. And so now I just want to devour anything this author has written, and I have this book, and I've heard a lot of great things about it, so I want to read it immediately. It's historical fiction fantasy, and I think it's set in the 1890s, and it says that in this time there is no such thing as witches. And I think we follow some characters who are a part of the suffragette movement, and these three sisters join that movement, and they're obviously fighting for rights and power, and I think they end up sort of rediscovering magic and like witchy powers in order to win those rights or fight for them. I don't really know how that comes together, but I mean, it sounds like an interesting mix. I love a witchy book, and I also actually really like books set in this particular time period. And I feel like that in combination with how much I'm loving this author's writing style right now, this is just gonna be perfect. I'm trying not to go into it with super high expectations, but I don't know. I have a feeling I'm gonna love it. Moving away from fantasy for a second, we have a historical fiction novel. It's Still Life by Sarah Winman. And this is also an author I read a book by, and I loved that book. And so I'm excited to read something else by her, but I'm also a little bit nervous because I just have a feeling that this book is gonna make me cry. This spans over several decades. I don't really know for how long, but I know that it starts off in Tuscany in 1944, where this young English soldier, I think he takes refuge in this abandoned villa, and in the cellar he meets this art historian who's there, also hiding, I'm guessing, and this chance encounter changes the whole trajectory of his life. And after that, I think we follow him for most of his life after that. I don't really know what the impact was or how it changes everything for him, but I'm excited to find out. I really loved the other book that I read by this author. It was called Tin Man. And the way that she wrote characters in that is what's making me think this book is going to make me cry because I loved those characters so much. And I just think this is going to be beautiful. Then we have one that seems like it's just going to be a little weird, but I am intrigued. It's Carnality by Lina Wolff. And I don't really know what to expect from this. I know it's contemporary fiction with some horror elements to it, and the cover is definitely giving off an interesting vibe. It follows a Swedish writer who gets some sort of like stipend to write for a few months, and she decides to go to Madrid, and in Madrid she runs into this man who has an extraordinary story to tell, and that story has something to do with a shadowy internet TV show, a diabolical nun, and a story of a girl with a missing left thumb. And I don't know what that has to do with anything, but it sounds interesting and kind of strange. I do not at all know what to expect from this book. I've never heard anyone talk about it, so I don't know. I'm just gonna go into it and we'll see what I find. It says that it's an exploration of morality and deception, though, which is interesting. Next, we have Forgotten on Sunday by Valérie Perrin, which is a book translated from French. And I read the book Fresh Water for Flowers by this author last summer, and it's now one of my all-time favorite books. And because I read that book in summer, it also feels like natural to read another book by her this summer. Even though that doesn't make a lot of sense, I'm hoping maybe I'll have like the same luck with this one. This sounds amazing to me. It follows a 21-year-old woman who lives with her grandparents because her parents have died, and she works in a retirement home. And in that retirement home, she gets to know this woman who's almost 100 years old, and the story is about them getting to know each other and revealing their stories to each other. And just that sounds amazing. I love a book about unlikely friendship. I love a book about female friendship. And for some reason, I really love books where the friendship is between someone who has like they're very different ages. So this seems like the perfect storm to me, and I loved the writing in Freshwater for Flowers, and I loved the characters. So I'm just assuming that I'm gonna love this one as well. I'm less certain that I'm gonna love this next one because I've heard sort of mixed things about it, but I'm still very interested in reading it, so I just have to try it. It's Hungerstone by Kat Dunn, and I really like the cover of this one. For some reason, I have a very big edition, but I really love the cover. This is historical fiction fantasy with some horror to it, and it's about this couple who have been married for 10 years, and I think they used to be quite close and happy, but they've sort of drifted apart a little bit, and they haven't been able to have children even though they wanted them. And then one night, I think a carriage or something happens with a carriage close to their house, and there's a woman in that carriage who then they take in or something, and this woman's name is Carmilla, and she's very weak and pale in the day, and she comes alive at night. And then the local village girls start falling ill, and I think they start being very hungry for things, and I'm sure we can all guess what this woman is. I haven't read that many vampire books, but I kind of want to read more, and this sounds like it could be interesting. I also am not totally sure what time period this is set in. I'm guessing maybe like the 1800s or something like that. And I don't really know what to expect from this, but I am intrigued. Then we have one that I've wanted to read for a while actually, and I've also wanted to try something from this author for a while. It's The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, and a lot of you have told me that this is really, really good, so I'm excited to read it. And I'm pretty sure this also is about siblings, and I love stories about siblings. I think this starts off at the end of the Second World War, where this man makes an investment that hurdles his family into wealth, and they used to be really poor. And because he has this wealth, he buys this huge estate outside of Philadelphia. And we meet his kids, so a son and a daughter, who grow up in this house, but eventually, for some reason, they get exiled from it and they're thrown back into poverty. And I think the story just follows them, and it seems like this book spans over several decades, so I'm guessing we see most of their lives. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I don't want to look into this too much. I'm just going to go into it and see. And I'm very interested to see what this author's writing style is like, because I've heard a lot of good things about it. And I think she has some other books that I also might be interested in reading. But I'm going to start with this one and see what I think. Next, we have a little bit of a chunky one. It's Fox by Joyce Carol Oates. And I have to sneak some dark academia into this TBR because despite my best intentions, I can't get to all of the dark academia books that I want to during fall. So I have to sneak some into other seasons as well, and this looks really good. This is, of course, set at an elite boarding school where there is this English teacher who is very charming and handsome, and most people really like him, but then some people wonder like where he's from and who he really is. So he is a little bit of a mystery. And then things get more mysterious when his car is found submerged in a pond, and this teacher is nowhere to be found. And in the woods around that pond, they find like body parts or something, and that's obviously quite unsettling. The setup of that sounds really interesting. I'm very curious about this teacher, and I wonder if he's like an unlikable character, and I'm just very curious. I think this story is also told from multiple perspectives, which I like, and I just have a good feeling about this book. In part, I think because I got this as a gift from a friend who's actually really good at picking out books for me, and that makes me even more excited to read this. It is like over 600 pages though, so it's big, but I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of time this summer, so I should get to it. Another kind of big book I have is Island Queen by Vanessa Riley, and I've had this book for a couple of years now and I still haven't gotten around to it. I think in part because this cover really makes me feel like I should read it during summer, because it just feels very summery to me. The title feels summery, and it is beautiful. Like, I just love the cover design of this. It's so good. This is historical fiction inspired by the true story of this free woman of color who rose from slavery to become one of the most powerful and wealthy landowners in the West Indies. And who doesn't want to read a book about a woman like that? Like, she sounds very interesting. And just that is enough for me, really. But I've also heard that the writing in this is really good. And I'm excited to see what kind of different settings we also get to see in here. So, yeah, again, I have a good feeling about this. I don't really know what I'm basing that on. Maybe the cover makes me feel like it's going to be good, because if the inside is as good as the outside, it's gonna be amazing. Moving on, we have The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. And this is a book that I got not too long ago, and I really like any book that has any like archaeological element to it, especially if it's historical fiction. So I'm excited to read this because of that, and I'm also excited to try something from this author because she has quite a lot of books, and a lot of them seem really interesting, but obviously I'm gonna read this first and see what I think. This one has two timelines. One is set in Egypt in 1936, where we meet an anthropology student who's offered a spot at an archaeological dig. And this is like a huge opportunity for her, but then it says that tragedy strikes, and I don't know what that is, but something happens. And then the other timeline is set in New York City in 1978, where this young woman gets a job, I think, working, organizing like the Met Gala. And that's a huge opportunity for her. And then during the Met Gala, I think an Egyptian artifact goes missing. And I'm guessing that has something to do with the other timeline. And I think this woman in this timeline and the woman from the other one have to get together to sort of find it. I'm wondering if they go back to Egypt. I don't really know. The setup of that sounds right up my alley though, so I'm excited to see how these two timelines come together. There is also mention of like a curse in here, so that's interesting, and yeah, I'm excited to read it. Then we have a dystopia, actually. It's What We Can Know by Ian McEwan, and I think this is like literary fiction dystopia, and I haven't read anything from this author in years. I read Atonement probably like 15 years ago, or maybe even longer, and I'm excited to read something else by him. I can't remember anything from that book or like anything about the writing style or anything, but this also sounds like a little bit of a different book for him. To be honest, I don't really know if I'm totally understanding what this book is about, but I think most of it is set in 2119, so in the future, where the oceans have risen, so most of the UK is like submerged, but we meet a scholar who works at a university that is obviously on land, or some land that is still there, and he comes across a poem from 2014 that has been lost. I think he finds a reference to it. And for some reason, this changes something. I don't really know why this poem is so important, but apparently it is. The reason that I'm really excited to read this book is that I've seen some reviews for this that made it sound perfect for me. So I'm just gonna go into this relatively blind and see what I find. I do really like dystopian books. I really need to read more of them, but yeah. I also think I'm really gonna get into this if it's like literary fiction dystopia. So I'm just gonna go into this and we'll see. Second to last, we have another witchy book. It's Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. And I love a witchy book, and this just feels like a good witchy book for summer. I don't know what I'm basing that on, maybe a little bit the cover, and I'm guessing it's in part about a garden, and that just makes me feel like it will be good for summer, but I'm sure you can read this at any time. This one follows a curious family that have peculiar gifts that make them outsiders in their little town in North Carolina. And they are in part famous for their, or famous or well known for their gifts, but also because in their garden there's this tree that bears prophetic fruit, which is interesting. I think we follow some of the women in this family though, and I think that maybe they are sisters or cousins or something like that. And I remember when I looked into this before I got this, it gave me a little bit of like practical magic vibes. I don't know if that's accurate, but if it's anywhere near that, I'm probably really gonna enjoy this. And I'm also very curious about this weird tree and what that fruit is like. Lastly, at the end, we have a book that I actually don't have a physical copy of yet. It's on its way to me in the post. It's Yesteryear, which you may have seen some buzz around because a lot of people have been talking about this book. It's a pretty new release, and I've been very excited about this book for months, so I just need to get my hands on this and read it and see what I think. It follows a social media influencer with millions of followers who basically sells her lifestyle as a trad wife on the internet. And then something happens where she, for some reason, wakes up in the year 1805 in that actual lifestyle. And I guess she has to figure out how to live that and survive that and maybe get back home. I don't really know, but just the premise of that sounds absolutely amazing. I've been trying to avoid reading too many reviews of this or seeing too many people talk about it, but I have seen a few things, and one of the things that I came across is that someone mentioned that the main character in this book is really unlikable, which I actually am very interested in because I love reading books about unlikable characters, and I think just the concept of this whole story sounds timely and interesting. And it does feel like one of those books that even if I don't end up loving it, it's gonna be a book that makes me think, which I'm always into. That was the last book on my list for today though, which means we have reached the end of this video. I would of course love to know if you have picked out any books for your summer reading list, and also if you, like any of the books that I mentioned, you feel like I absolutely need to prioritize and get to first, let me know, and maybe, I never really know where my mood takes me, but maybe that will make me even more excited to read some of these. That was it for today though. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!